On our wedding night, my husband pulled the son left by his late first wife out from behind him. Yulan left us too soon. Heng'er is a sensitive boy who can't bear to be apart from his father. He'll sleep with us tonight. I raised an eyebrow, pulled out the memorial tablet of my deceased elder brother from my dowry, and said with a choked voice, "An elder brother is like a father to me." It was the greatest regret of his life that he didn't live to see his little sister get married. Brother would have wanted to be with us for this family reunion tonight. Husband, you are such a reasonable man, surely you'll fulfill my filial wish. Zhu Wangqing's lips twitched, and his face instantly turned black. Later on, my husband put his stepson first in everything he did, so I sent for my niece to come live with us, since the light of his life, his late wife, could haunt our days, then our days should at least be lively and fair. At the sight of the memorial tablet in my hand, Zhu Heng let out a scream and scurried behind his father. "How dare you bring something belonging to a dead person in here? Father, why don't you throw it out right now?" Zhu Wangqing's lips twitched again. He looked at the tears glistening in the corners of my eyes, but made no move to do as his son asked. But I moved first. I quickly stuffed the memorial tablet into Zhu Heng's arms and snapped at him sharply. "I have married into the Zhu family, and from now on, I am the mistress of this household and your mother. My elder brother is your maternal uncle. How dare you be so disrespectful to him? Husband, I have always understood how deep your love was for your late wife, and I have treated Heng'er as my own son. I even agreed to share our wedding bed with the two of you last night. But now he has insulted my brother like this. Why are you not stopping him?" The veins on Zhu Wangqing's forehead throbbed with suppressed anger. "Shen Miaoyin, what do you think you're doing? Heng'er is just a child. You've frightened him half to death." I stared at him fixedly, tears streaming down my cheeks. "Very well then, Zhu Wangqing. I see now that you never liked me at all." Zhu Wangqing frowned at my words. "You should have known from the start that there has only ever been Yulan in my heart. But I wasn't finished yet. If you don't like me, if you don't like the Shen family, if you don't accept this marriage bestowed by His Majesty, then you are defying the imperial edict, and to put it bluntly, that is tantamount to plotting treason." Zhu Wangqing had lost his beloved first wife, Jiyu Yulan, at a young age. I had heard that she was a renowned talented woman from Jiangnan, gentle as water, but unfortunately, she had passed away on the day she gave birth to Zhu Heng. When this imperial marriage was first arranged, I had thought for sure that Zhu Wangqing, who was so deeply devoted to his late wife, would refuse it, and then I would have been able to get out of it. But to my surprise, Zhu Wangqing had agreed. The reason was simple. He had said, "Heng'er needs a mother." Well, thank you very much, but I did not need such an obnoxious son. The imperial marriage was a great favor from His Majesty. Zhu Wangqing could not afford to bear the crime of defying the emperor's order. And he was already fed up with the constant quarrels between me and Zhu Heng. He wanted to brush the whole thing aside. He rubbed his temples wearily and said, "It's not that I don't like you. All right, let's go to sleep." Zhu Heng turned to look at him in disbelief, his eyes gradually reddening. "Father, have you forgotten about mother already?" Zhu Wangqing paused for a moment, a flicker of sorrow flashing across his eyes. But I kept my gaze fixed firmly on him, as if the moment he said he hadn't forgotten her, I would pin the charge of treason squarely on his head. After a long while, Zhu Wangqing turned his head away in embarrassment and said flatly, "From now on, Miaoyin will be your mother. You two must learn to get along well." I looked at the pouting Zhu Heng and broke into a smile. "That's my sensible husband. Tonight, you sleep in the middle and hold uncle in your arms. Don't let go until he has forgiven you." Early the next morning, Zhu Wangqing changed into his official robes and went to court. When I got up, the first thing I saw was Zhu Heng's resentful gaze and the dark circles under his eyes. He glanced at the memorial tablet on the bed, his little face turning deathly pale, then turned and ran out of the room without a word. I paid him no mind, taking my time to straighten my clothes and collar. A short while later, a servant came from my mother-in-law's courtyard, saying that she wanted me to go see her. As soon as I stepped into her room, I heard a cold, sharp voice ring out, "Kneel." Zhu Heng had somehow made his way to my mother-in-law's courtyard earlier, and he was now snuggled up in her arms. His eyes were fixed on me with a look of triumphant malice. I wondered who had gone running to tattle. It was truly a mystery. I raised an eyebrow, took the teacup from the maid's hand with perfect compliance, and knelt down in front of my mother-in-law. Mother-in-law, please have some tea. My mother-in-law said nothing, just holding Ju-hung tightly in her arms and glaring at me in silence. After waiting for about a quarter of an hour, I stood up on my own, under the shocked gazes of my mother-in-law and all the servants present. I placed the teacup in front of her and said with a look of deep remorse, "It's all my fault, daughter-in-law. Before I married into this family, I never found out that my mother-in-law is deaf and blind, and now I've even had the audacity to offer you tea. I deserve to die for my rudeness." As soon as the words left my mouth, my mother-in-law slammed her palm down on the table in a rage. "What did you say?" I looked at her in feigned surprise. "So you can hear after all. Mother-in-law, you hadn't said a single word just now. I thought for a moment that you were." Ju-hung's body trembled with anger. He couldn't help but shake my mother-in-law's arm and shouted loudly, "Grandmother, look at what she's saying." My mother-in-law patted Ju-hung's back soothingly, her eyes still fixed on me with a cold glare. "Causing such a scene on your wedding night, and then showing such a disrespectful face to this old woman early in the morning. So this is how the Shen family raises their daughters." I blinked, and my eyes turned red at the right moment. Mother-in-law is absolutely right. "It is all my fault, daughter-in-law." Both my mother-in-law and Ju-hung froze, clearly not expecting me to back down so easily. But in the next breath, I changed the subject, dabbing at the corners of my eyes with a handkerchief. "However, my elder brother died for his country, and his bones are not yet cold. When His Majesty bestowed this marriage upon us, he also praised the Shen family for their loyalty and integrity, urging the Ju family to treat me well. Last night, when I saw how Hunger cowered in fear at the sight of my brother's tablet, and even dared to utter such disrespectful words, I felt truly heartbroken. Husband is the minister of rights, and our Ju family is supposed to be the most strict adherents to propriety and ritual. I wonder what punishment is appropriate for a child who shows no respect for his elders." The color drained from my mother-in-law's face in an instant. 3. I cleared my throat, about to speak again. Behind me, Ju Wangqing had returned in a hurry without my noticing. He avoided my gaze and said quickly, "Hunger is still young and doesn't know any better. Shen Miaoyin, enough is enough, stop making a scene." My voice softened a little as I replied, 8 years old, and still doesn't know how to respect his maternal uncle who died fighting for his country. If a child in my Shen family dared to speak or act like this, he would be kneeling in the ancestral hall copying the classic of filial piety. Before I married into the Ju family, I had already sent someone to inquire about Ju-hung. I had learned that because his mother had died young, he had been spoiled rotten by his father and grandmother, growing up lazy, arrogant, and domineering. Sure enough, at the mention of having to copy books, Ju-hung immediately panicked. "He was your brother, not mine. I don't need you as my mother, and I'm not copying any stupid books." Ju Wangqing snapped sharply, "Hunger." But it was already too late. I looked at him with a gentle smile and said, "Husband, as the minister of rights, you should be even more committed to upholding the principles of propriety. If word gets out about how you are indulging your son's disrespectful behavior, the censors will have enough material to keep them busy for 3 whole days." Ju Wangqing opened his mouth to say something, but in the end, he could only close his eyes in exhaustion. My mother-in-law made the final decision. Though she was reluctant, she did not want to give people any reason to gossip about the Ju family. "Miaoyin is right," she said firmly. "Hunger, you will copy the book 10 times a day. 3 days from now, you will present your work to your mother for inspection." No matter how much Ju-hung cried and kicked up a fuss after that, he had no choice but to stay in his room and copy the scriptures obediently, forbidden to come out until he had finished his assigned task. With Ju-hung dealt with, my mood lifted considerably. I was just about to head back to my courtyard when Ju Wangqing, his face dark with anger, called me to stop. "Now that you are married into this family, you should meet her." He led me to a small Buddhist shrine room. It was filled with burning incense candles and Buddha statues, and in the center of the room stood a memorial tablet dedicated to his late wife, Jiyu Yulan. The offering table in front of the tablet was always filled with incense and sacrifices, clear evidence that someone came to tend to it regularly. A soft, tender look flickered across Zhu Wangqing's eyes as he handed me 3 sticks of incense. I followed his lead and bowed respectfully to Jiyu Yuelan's tablet. I heard Zhu Wangqing murmur softly, "I've found a mother for Heng'er. You can rest in peace now, knowing that he will be taken care of. She is the daughter of a military general. Not as gentle or intelligent as you were, but she takes rules and propriety very seriously. I think she will be able to teach Heng'er well." Then he turned to face me, his tone brooking no argument. "Miaoyin, swear in front of Yuelan's tablet that you will take good care of Heng'er, even if it means sacrificing your own happiness." The smile froze on my face, and I did not open my mouth to speak, but Zhu Wangqing refused to let it go, going on and on about how wonderful his Yulan had been. How deeply in love they had been. He rambled on about how the entire mansion was planted with the flowers she had loved, how even our new bridal chamber was decorated exactly the same way as the one they had shared on their wedding day. When he lay in it, he said, it was as if he had been transported back to the day he had married her. Finally, Zhu Wangqing looked at me with a faint, sorrowful gaze. "You are going to be Heng'er's mother from now on. Surely it is not too much to ask for you to make this vow in front of her tablet." I gritted my teeth and said slowly, word by word, "Very well. I swear that I will certainly teach Zhu Heng well from now on." Only then did Zhu Wangqing let the matter drop, but that night, I tossed and turned in bed, unable to sleep, feeling as if my heart was weighed down by a heavy stone. So the next day, I took my elder brother's memorial tablet and placed it in that carefully maintained little Buddhist shrine room, letting out a long, satisfying sigh of relief as I did so. I was just kneeling down to pay my respects when Zhu Wangqing's voice rang out behind me in a roar of disbelief. "Shen Miaoyin, what do you think you're doing?" I jumped in surprise, and the incense stick in my hand almost set fire to his beloved light of his life's memorial tablet. Fortunately, Zhu Wangqing reacted quickly, reaching out to block it just in time. I was the first to speak, my voice filled with anger. "Husband, why are you yelling so loudly? What if you had accidentally knocked over the incense and set fire to Sister Gu's tablet?" Zhu Wangqing clenched his fists so tightly that his knuckles turned white, grinding his words out through gritted teeth. "Why did you put your brother's memorial tablet in here too?" I looked at him with wide, innocent eyes and said, "I promised Sister Jiyu that I would take good care of Heng'er. He's afraid of this tablet, so I brought it here to keep her company." Husband, looking after one memorial tablet is just as easy as looking after 2. For a high-ranking minister like you to be so petty, word would get out and people would laugh at you. Zhu Wangqing was so angry that his fingers were trembling, and his eyes were even glistening with unshed tears of rage. "This place is meant for Yulan and Yulan alone." I blinked, my voice soft and gentle as I replied, "That's right, husband's love for Sister Jiyu is as deep as the sea, and this is such a lovely, peaceful place. It is perfect for my brother's tablet too. He fought countless battles for his country and achieved extraordinary feats. To share a Buddhist shrine with such a heroic man, surely Sister Yulan would consider it a great honor." "Husband, you wouldn't possibly object, would you?" Zhu Wangqing's lips trembled, and he could not utter a single word in reply. With a snort of rage, he turned on his heel and stormed out of the room. 2 days later, Zhu Heng was finally allowed to leave his room. He brought a stack of scribbled, messy copies of the classic of filial piety and presented them to me. I accepted them with a smile. Fixing my gaze on him, Zhu Heng trembled slightly under my stare. "What are you looking at me for?" I said calmly, "I just want to check if you have copied enough, and to see if you know how to greet your mistress properly when you see her." Zhu Heng bit his lip, hesitating for a moment, then reluctantly bowed and mumbled, "Mother." I nodded in satisfaction. "Good boy, from now on, you must study the rules of propriety diligently and learn to respect your uncle. Later, you will go to the small Buddhist shrine room to burn incense for your uncle." I had never wanted to make things too difficult for them. I had married into the Zhu family only hoping to live a quiet life, treating them like strangers, but this father and son pair had repeatedly provoked me. If I had been a meek, spineless woman, they would have walked all over me long ago. A few days later, My personal maid Qiushuang reported to me that Zhu Heng had knocked over the offerings in front of my brother's memorial tablet, and had even made faces at the tablet while burning incense. She had heard him muttering angrily, "Not a single one of you Shen family members is any good. That bitch Shen Miaoyin wants to be my mother, over my dead body." I did not show any sign of anger on my face. The next day, in the name of mourning my elder brother, I summoned the entire household to the small Buddhist shrine room. The Taoist priest said that if two close family members lead everyone in reciting scriptures at the third hour of the morning, it will ensure the peaceful rest of the deceased. Husband has to go to court during the day and is already exhausted enough as it is, so Heng'er and I will take on this duty together. Zhu Heng's eyes widened in shock, and he looked at Zhu Wangqing pleadingly. "Father, I have to go to school during the day." I spoke before Zhu Wangqing could open his mouth. "Husband, I know how deeply you cared for Sister Yulan, but Heng'er has been spoiled far too much these past few years. If we don't teach him to behave properly now, it will be too late to correct his mistakes when he grows up." I spoke earnestly, putting on the perfect act of a loving stepmother who had her stepson's best interests at heart. Zhu Wangqing fell silent. He knew exactly what kind of person Zhu Heng was. Bound by his love for Jiyu Yulan, he doted on this son relentlessly. His mother, needless to say, had spoiled the boy into an arrogant, unruly tyrant. "It's just reciting scriptures early every morning. It won't take long. I'm sure it'll be good exercise for you. Do as your mother says." Zhu Heng hung his head in disappointment, tears glistening in his eyes. "Father, ever since she came, you don't love me anymore." I curved my lips into a faint smile. From then on, every day before dawn, I roused Zhu Heng from his bed. The entire household servants gathered to chant scriptures in low voices, so much so that even the old madam could not sleep soundly. I also placed my elder brother's portrait in the main hall, ordering all servants to bow to it every day. I had exquisite pastries made daily and distributed them to everyone in the mansion. I simply said, "My elder brother appeared to me in a dream last night, wishing to share his blessings with all of you." In no time at all, except for Zhu Heng. Every servant in the mansion was eager to wake up early for the scripture recital and bowing ceremony. Next, I made Zhu Heng wear plain mourning clothes for 3 days to show filial piety to his maternal uncle, whom he had never even met. "My brother has been gone for 3 years. What's wrong with wearing plain clothes for 3 days? Or do you simply refuse to acknowledge this uncle of yours?" Zhu Heng had no answer to that. He went to school for 3 days and was mocked relentlessly for 3 days. When he returned home, he threw a terrible tantrum in his grandmother's courtyard, then stormed off to argue with Zhu Wangqing. Zhu Wangqing came to the main hall, trying to stop me. "Miaoyin, making such a big fuss over this, it's disturbing the peace of the mansion." At that moment, I was personally wiping my brother's portrait. I turned around at his words, my eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "Does husband find my brother's portrait an eyesore?" Zhu Wangqing frowned. "That's not what I meant." I cut him off abruptly, my tears turning into a smile. "Then you support me." I knew it. "As the Minister of Rights, you are the most reasonable man in the world." 5. Zhu Wangqing's attempt to dissuade me ended in failure. The most miserable one was undoubtedly Zhu Heng. Even worse, the atmosphere in the mansion had shifted completely when I first married into the Zhu family. The servants would occasionally glance at me with pity in their eyes. Everyone knew how deeply Zhu Wangqing had loved his first wife, Jiyu Yulan, but gradually, their pity turned into gratitude and respect. Shortly after entering the mansion, the old madam had handed over the management of household affairs to me. Following my family's old traditions, I established clearer standards for rewards and punishments. I not only arranged for servants to take turns on leave but also increased the pension for their families. The servants relished the delicious pastries and were grateful for my kindness. But Zhu Heng hated them. He found the treats tasteless as wax. He struggled to choke them down every day, sneaking off to throw them away several times. Today, I caught him in the act. Zhu Heng finally lost his temper. He shouted at the top of his lungs, "I refuse to eat them. What are you going to do about it? Forcing me to mourn a dead man every single day. You just want to be my mother and make father like you, don't you?" I sighed. "Heng'er, you're misunderstanding me. It doesn't matter what you think of me. But how can you betray your uncle's sincere kindness? Word of this incident spread quickly. Even the servants in the old madam's courtyard began to whisper among themselves. Although the new madam's methods are a bit unusual, she is indeed a filial woman. The young master has simply been spoiled rotten. That night, Qiushuang sent word that Zhu Wangqing had gone to the courtyard where Jiu Yulan used to live. Everything there had been kept exactly as it was when she was alive. There was nothing extraordinary about his visit. He just sighed, lamenting his failure to raise his son properly, feeling he had let Jiu Yulan down. He also muttered at length about the deep love he and Jiu Yulan had shared. I listened to the report with little interest. Waving my hand to tell Qiushuang to stop, I already had a plan forming in my mind. The next day, I made a suggestion to Zhu Wangqing. Heng'er is 8 years old now. It's time for him to learn proper etiquette and skills in earnest. I've noticed that the boys around him are far too indulgent of his whims. Why not replace them with 2 more steady, responsible servants? Zhu Wangqing gave me a long, meaningful look. Those boys have been with him since he was little. He's used to them. I met his gaze without the slightest hint of timidity. Precisely because he's used to them, he's turned into the spoiled child he is today. In my family, the Shen family, all boys are taught to be sensible from an early age. When my elder brother was 8, he was already accompanying my father to the border military camps. Husband, look at Heng'er. If Sister Yulan were watching from the afterlife, she would never want you to spoil him so excessively that you ruin his future. Zhu Wangqing lost his temper. Slamming his palm heavily on the table, Shen Miaoyin, I'm here. Since I married you, Heng'er is as good as my own son. A mother must plan for her child's long-term future. If you trust me, I will personally select 2 servants for him. I guarantee they will teach him to be a polite, reasonable young man. I stared straight into Zhu Wangqing's eyes. In the end, he backed down. Do as you see fit. I moved quickly. From the loyal servants my father had sent with me, I chose 2, one steady and prudent, the other quick-witted, and placed them by Zhu Heng's side. Zhu Heng was furious, kicking up a terrible fuss. When I arrived at his courtyard, he looked at me with pure hatred in his eyes, the corners of his eyes reddening with rage. You talked father into this, didn't you? Mema Li has taken care of me for years. Wei Zhuang and Wei, you have grown up with me. What right do you have to replace them? I looked at him, curving my lips into a smile. The right given to me by your father, and the right of a mother. Zhu Heng glared at me, seething with hatred. It's all your fault. Ever since you came, everything has changed. 10. Zhu Heng's tantrum did not last long. I had the servants put him to bed. Now that he was surrounded by my people, I had nothing to worry about. As for the capital city, I also had the Shen family spread rumors praising Minister Zhu for his deep affection and loyalty, and his great respect for his late wife's brother. I heard that the emperor himself had praised him for this at the morning court session today. Zhu Wangqing began visiting Zhu Yulan's courtyard more and more frequently. I could well imagine his inner turmoil. Indulging me felt like betraying his late wife, but if he refused to go along with my plans, I could easily brand him with the stigma of being ungrateful and disrespectful to his in-laws. Ever since the 2 new servants had joined Zhu Heng, the boy had become much quieter and more subdued. Zhu Wangqing watched him with a pained heart. Perhaps we should send the old boys back. Yulan only left Heng'er as her son. I looked at him with a meaningful expression. Husband, I have no intention of bearing children in this life. Heng'er will be our only son. Can't you see how much more steady he's become? If you continue to spoil him now, it will be like smothering him with kindness until he is completely ruined. Something in Zhu Wangqing's eyes began to waver. He did not notice the dark, resentful glint that flashed across Zhu Heng's eyes as the boy passed by us. In the days that followed, Zhu Heng came to pay his respects to me every morning and evening, then went to greet his grandmother. He went through the whole routine flawlessly, putting on a perfect show of good behavior. Then, one night, Zhu Heng suddenly developed a high fever, deliriously calling out for mother. By the time I arrived at his courtyard, Zhu Wangqing was already there. He held Zhu Heng in his arms, his eyes sharp as a blade, his voice cold as ice. Heng'er can't find the hairpin his mother left him. I had just woken up in the middle of the night. my mind still fuzzy with sleep, and that's why he's developed a fever. Zhu Wangqing fixed me with a dark, accusing stare. He's been under so much pressure these past few days, and he's been missing his birth mother dearly. That's why he fell ill. Just now, while he was burning up with fever. He kept crying for Yuelan's hairpin. Now all the people around him are yours. Have you seen that hairpin? I understood the implication in his words loud and clear, and I was no longer in the mood to be polite. What exactly are you implying, husband? That I stole his mother's hairpin, then foolishly kept it in my own room for everyone to find? Can you really believe such a clumsy, transparent scheme? 11. This whole incident was riddled with holes. I refused to believe Zhu Wangqing could not see through it, especially after I spoke. The way Zhu Heng's eyes darted away, clearly avoiding my gaze, but Zhu Wangqing did not look at me, simply repeating his order in a cold voice. Do as I say. I looked at the father and son, then turned my head and walked away without another word, my heart cold as ice. After Zhu Heng recovered from his illness, Zhu Wangqing came to see me once. He looked at me, hesitation written all over his face. After a long pause, he finally spoke. Heng is still just a child. He lost his mother at a young age and has so few friends, going through so much so suddenly. It's only natural that he would grow distant from you. I've already spoken to him about what happened the other day. Ultimately, you shouldn't have been so harsh and extreme with him. Between a mother and son, there are no real right or wrongs. Apologize to him, and we'll let this matter go. I said nothing. Keeping my eyes fixed on the book in my hands, Zhu Wangqing waited for a while. Growing impatient, he raised his voice. Shen Miaoyin, when you married into the Zhu family, your most important duty was to take good care of Heng. Is this the behavior befitting a mother? I set the book down abruptly, my expression turning frosty. An 8-year-old child falsely accusing his mother and the father acting as his accomplice. Is this the behavior befitting the Zhu family? Zhu Wangqing froze, his brows furrowing deeply. My tone softened slightly as I changed the subject, speaking in a calm, indifferent voice. Very well, I'll apologize to him. But Heng has been complaining about having no friends, hasn't he? My elder brother left behind a daughter named Xiao. My brother, sister-in-law, and father are stationed at the border year-round, so the child has been raised by my mother. She is a very sensible, lovely little girl, since his lacking playmates. Why not invite Xiao to stay with us at the Zhu mansion for a while? I miss her dearly. Anyway, Zhu Wangqing knew he was in the wrong. He readily agreed. Very well. Your brother was an upright man of great integrity. I have no reason to refuse. What he did not know was that Xiao's temperament took after her mother's. She, you see, was particularly skilled at dealing with spoiled, entitled boys like Zhu Heng. 12. Xiao was a few months younger than Zhu Heng. But she had studied both literature and martial arts since childhood. She was a very competitive girl, and taller than most children of her age. On the day she first arrived, the little girl was dressed in a bright red robe, looking radiant and pretty, yet her manners were impeccable. She curtsied gracefully to my mother-in-law and called out with a smile, Madame Zhu, Auntie, cousin. I never imagined that Madame Zhu would be so young and beautiful. It almost feels awkward to call you that. My grandmother has been talking about you non-stop. Auntie, I'm afraid I'll have to impose on you for a few days. Faced with such a lovely and sensible child, my mother-in-law couldn't help taking off the jade bracelet on her wrist and pressing it into Xiao's hand. She pretended to scold her affectionately. Oh, don't flatter me like that, you sweet girl, you're truly a delight. With that, she pulled Zhu Heng forward. This is your cousin, hurry up and greet her properly. Zhu Heng sized Xiao up coldly, then turned his head away stubbornly. Madame Zhu's face reddened with embarrassment, and she frowned in displeasure. I smiled and stepped in to smooth things over. All right, now that everyone's met, let's go have our meal first. Xiao called out crisply, Cousin Zhu Heng, then sat down beside me. She was a natural charmer. By the end of the meal, my mother-in-law was floating on cloud 9, having been showered with so many compliments that she could barely find her way back north. Still, Zhu Heng was her grandson after all. As soon as Xiao followed a maid to her courtyard, my mother-in-law called me to a stop. Heng is a timid boy. Your niece is a fine child, ask her to teach Heng a thing or two. After all, He is the eldest grandson of the Zhu family. We can't have him making a fool of himself in front of others. Just one thing, don't you dare hurt him." I nodded in agreement. Ling Xiao has a very gentle nature. Mother-in-law, you have my word. Madame Zhu let out a soft huff. So it seems. That child is far more intelligent and sensible than you. When I returned to my own courtyard, I found Ling Xiao sitting with her legs crossed, twirling a crossbow in her hand. I walked in helplessly. "Why on earth did you bring this with you?" Ling Xiao blinked her eyes, then pulled out a slingshot with her left hand. With her right hand, she picked up a small stone she had somehow found, aimed it out the window, and fired. Qiu Shuang immediately went outside to check. When she came back, she was holding a pomegranate in her hand. Smiling broadly, "Miss, your aim is getting better and better." Ling Xiao's eyes narrowed slightly. The polite, aristocratic smile on her lips vanished, replaced by a mischievous glint. "Auntie, I heard you were being bullied. How could I not bring a few useful things with me? That little brat isn't even worth using these on." I tapped her lightly on the forehead. "You're impossible. All right, later we'll go to the Buddhist shrine to burn some incense for your father." At the mention of her elder brother, Ling Xiao's smile faded. She hung her head and mumbled quietly, "Mother wrote to me again. She still won't let me go to the border." I patted her on the shoulder, my voice soft and comforting. "You're still too young. Your mother just thinks it's too dangerous there. Tell you what, once we finish dealing with things here, I'll take you to the border myself. How does that sound?" Ling Xiao's eyes lit up instantly. "Really, of course, a promise is a promise." 13. A few days later, my mother-in-law announced that she would be going to the temple to burn incense for a few days. And she instructed me to take good care of Zhuheng while she was away. I naturally agreed. In these past few days, Zhu Wangqing had also taken quite a liking to Ling Xiao. I said to him, "We haven't really done anything to take special care of Ling Xiao, it's just that all her playmates, maids, and attendants are all very well behaved and know their place. Children learn by example, so it's only natural that she should behave so properly too." Zhu Wangqing stared thoughtfully at Ling Xiao, who was chasing butterflies not far away, then nodded and gave the two children permission to go out and play. We had never restricted Ling Xiao's movements. She was always running around outside, exploring to her heart's content, as long as she kept her identity hidden. Neither I nor her mother had ever said a word to stop her, so this time, when they went out, she seemed rather unenthusiastic about the whole affair. But Zhuheng was a different story. My mother-in-law and Zhu Wangqing had always doted on him like the apple of their eyes, placing his safety above everything else. It was a rare treat for him to be allowed out, and he was so excited he could barely contain himself. On the way there, he rolled his eyes at me disdainfully. "I finally get to go out and play, and you just have to tag along. Can't you leave me alone? You're so annoying." I didn't react at all, but Ling Xiao's brows immediately furrowed in anger. "Who taught you to talk to my aunt like that?" Zhuheng glanced at her again, sneering. "You're just like her, equally annoying. My grandmother said that your aunt must have accumulated several lifetimes of merit to marry my father. Your entire Shen family is nothing but a bunch of nuisances." Ling Xiao was so angry her teeth were grinding together, but then her eyes suddenly darted back and forth as a devious idea crossed her mind. "I was just thinking that your entire Zhu family is a bunch of nuisances too. Later, we'll go to the outskirts of the capital to hunt rabbits. Let's see who's better at it. How about that? Whoever loses has to bark like a dog." Zhuheng stared at Ling Xiao in shock, then curled his lip in contempt. "You, hunt rabbits? Don't make me laugh." Ling Xiao tossed her hair, speaking confidently. "I'll even give you a head start. 3 sticks of incense time. I don't need your charity." "Fine, you're on." Zhuheng was still just a child, and he couldn't resist a good challenge. I didn't say a word the entire time, only instructing Qiu Shuang to keep an eye on the two of them and make sure they were safe. When they reached the hunting grounds, Zhuheng immediately pulled out his slingshot and began searching eagerly for rabbits. Meanwhile, Ling Xiao simply hitched up her skirts, leaped onto her horse, and waited patiently for the 3 sticks of incense to burn down. She wasn't in any hurry to look for rabbits at all. As soon as Zhuheng managed to hit his first rabbit, he jumped up and down with excitement. "I got one. You useless little girl, you and your aunt can get ready to bark like dogs now. Ha ha ha." Unfortunately for him, he had celebrated his victory a little too soon. Qiu Shuang and I had set up a chair by the side, and we sat there sipping tea, not the least bit worried about Ling Xiao. Ling Xiao didn't say a word either. But a cold glint flashed in her eyes, and her round, childish face turned serious. Whenever she made that expression, it meant someone was about to be in for a world of trouble. Qiu Shuang noticed it too, and she couldn't help shivering slightly, rubbing her hands behind her back. Master Zhu really has a lot of courage to challenge the young miss like this. What followed was the most unforgettable day of Zhu Heng's life. Every single rabbit that Zhu Heng spotted was shot down by Ling Xiao before he could even get a shot off, and she even caught several rabbits that he hadn't even noticed at all. And then, just as the last stick of incense was about to burn out, Ling Xiao tossed her bow aside completely and stared at him, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Oh, what's wrong, cousin? Why do you look like you're about to cry? Crying is such a babyish thing to do. I'm not going to hunt anymore. You can take it from here. I'll just sit back and wait to hear you bark like a dog." Zhu Heng had already been blushing with rage and embarrassment, but this final taunt was the last straw. He burst into tears on the spot. In a fit of childish fury, he raised his slingshot and fired a stone straight at Ling Xiao's face. She dodged sideways with lightning speed, then caught the whip that Qiu Shuang tossed to her, and cracked it down hard on Zhu Heng's bottom in one smooth motion. Then she lashed out again and again, mercilessly. Zhu Heng let out a series of shrill screams of pain. Ling Xiao was still seething with anger. She threw the whip aside, sat down heavily on top of him, and started spanking him hard, her voice fierce and angry. "You useless little brat! How dare you try to sneak attack me, and how dare you bully my aunt? I've seen soldiers kill enemies on the border before. I'm not afraid of a spoiled little kid like you. I'll have you know, I've even killed people myself. If you ever dare to show the slightest bit of disrespect to me or my aunt again, I'll—" She didn't finish her sentence, but the sinister, menacing smile on her face said it all. Zhu Heng's lips trembled, and then he let out a wail, sobbing so hard he could barely catch his breath. 14. When we returned to the mansion, I fully expected my mother-in-law and Zhu Wangqing to summon me for a stern scolding, but to my surprise, the entire evening passed without a single word of reproach. I was beginning to feel rather confused, but Ling Xiao was grinning from ear to ear. "Auntie, you just don't get it. You know why I've never gotten a bad reputation, even though I've beaten up so many people before? It's because they're all too embarrassed to tell anyone what happened. All the young masters from the noble families in the capital are always trying to prove how tough and manly they are. If word got out that Zhu Heng got beaten up by a girl, they'd laugh at him for years." It was like a light bulb going off in my head. I finally understood. But what surprised me even more was that even if Zhu Heng had gone running to tattle, it wouldn't have done him any good. The next day, a maid came rushing to me in a panic, saying that Ling Xiao and Zhu Heng had gotten into a fight in the garden. Zhu Wangqing and I hurried over there at once. Zhu Heng was in tears, sniffling and hurling insults at Ling Xiao. "You uneducated little brat. You did that on purpose. You stepped on my foot deliberately." Ling Xiao squatted down in front of him, resting her chin in her hands, and looked up at him with a perfectly innocent expression. "I didn't see you there, cousin. I'm so sorry. How about I blow on it for you? My mother always says that blowing on a sore spot makes the pain go away faster." She looked so sweet and harmless that no one could possibly stay angry with her. Zhu Wangqing was absolutely livid, but there was nothing he could say. He could only awkwardly scold his own son instead. "Why don't you watch where you're going? It's your own fault for being so clumsy." Then he turned to the maid, his voice sharp with annoyance. "Next time, report the truth of what happened. And stop exaggerating things. It was just a silly little misunderstanding between children. There was no need to make it sound like such a big deal." Zhu Heng stared at him in stunned disbelief, then burst into tears again, genuine tears of hurt and betrayal this time. But even though Zhu Wangqing doted on his son, he couldn't exactly comfort him the same way he would comfort a little girl. He could only pat him awkwardly on the back and mumble a few half-hearted words of consolation before leaving. Ever since Ling Xiao had arrived at the mansion, the atmosphere in the household had become subtly different. Zhu Heng had always been a lazy sleeper who liked to stay in bed until late in the morning, But Ling Xiao was up bright and early every day, paying her respects to her father's portrait, and she even insisted on dragging Zhu Heng out of bed to join her. My father was a strict military commander when he was alive, she would say solemnly to him. If he knew that his nephew was such a lazy slob who slept in all day, I'm sure he'd come back from the grave to give you a good talking to. Zhu Heng would always shiver in terror at those words, trembling like a leaf in the wind. After that, he started going out of his way to avoid Ling Xiao and me at all costs. I was more than happy to enjoy the peace and quiet. I told Ling Xiao to go back to the Shun family mansion and wait for my news. I'll write a letter to your mother soon, asking her to take you to the border as soon as possible. But I have one condition: you are not allowed to go anywhere near the battlefield. You're still too young for that. You can only stay there for a month or so. Otherwise, your grandmother will worry herself sick. Do you understand? As I spoke, I began to feel drowsy. It was clearly still early afternoon. But I was overcome with a sudden, overwhelming sense of tiredness. I could barely make out what Ling Xiao was saying in response. Qiu Shuang looked at me with deep concern. Madam, you've been feeling so exhausted lately. Should we send for a doctor to take a look at you? I didn't have the strength to answer her. My eyes drifted shut, and I slipped into a deep, heavy sleep. When I woke up again, Ling Xiao was the only one by my side, her little brow furrowed with worry. Auntie, you've practiced martial arts since you were a child. You've never been this weak before. My eyes darkened slightly as I tried to think things through carefully, but something just didn't add up. No matter how much Zhu Wangqing missed his late wife Jiyu Yulan, he shouldn't have any reason to harm me. 15. The words that Qiu Shuang and Ling Xiao had spoken kept echoing in my mind over and over again. Ling Xiao refused to go back to the Shun mansion, saying that she wanted to stay with me for a few more days to keep me company. Then came the 15th day of the lunar month, the day when Zhu Wangqing would come to my courtyard to have dinner with me. As was his custom, even though we had never consummated our marriage, we still had to maintain the pretense of being a loving couple for the sake of appearances. I had never refused to let him come before, but this time, as I picked up my spoon, my hand suddenly trembled violently. The spoon slipped from my fingers and clattered loudly into my bowl. Zhu Wangqing looked up at me in surprise. "What's wrong with you?" "Just a slip of the hand," I replied, my voice calm and steady, but when I lowered my head, I noticed that my fingertips were still shaking slightly. Zhu Wangqing stared at my hand for a long moment, then lowered his eyes again, his expression unreadable. "The weather is getting colder," he said flatly. "Take care of yourself when you go out. Make sure to wear more clothes." His tone was so neutral that it sounded less like a word of concern and more like a routine, meaningless remark. I nodded and murmured a quiet agreement, but a strange, uneasy feeling had begun to creep into my heart. As soon as he left, I summoned my hidden guards and ordered them to report to me on Zhu Wangqing's recent movements. According to their report, his days had been filled with nothing but handling official business, paying his respects to my mother-in-law, and spending time in the small Buddhist shrine room, talking to Jiyu Yuelan's memorial tablet. Last night, this subordinate overheard Master Zhu muttering something to himself. One of the guards reported, his voice serious. He said something about it's almost time and being reunited with Lady Jiyu at last. Reunited. My heart skipped a beat, and a cold, terrible premonition washed over me. Just then, Ling Xiao burst in from outside, the little girl's face set in a determined frown. "Auntie, you have to see a doctor. It's not urgent. I still have things to take care of these days." "No. It is urgent." Ling Xiao cut me off, pulling a handkerchief from her pocket. When she unfolded it, a few dark brown fragments of incense lay inside. "I found these in the crack by your bed. They smell really strange. I was going to take them to a doctor, but every time I tried to leave the mansion, I ran into Uncle. He said it wasn't safe for me to go out alone, so he wouldn't let me leave the Jew residence." I took the handkerchief from her, leaning in to sniff it. A faint, exotic scent wafted up. The longer I breathed it in, the dizzier my head felt. My expression darkened instantly. I summoned my hidden guards and ordered them to take the incense fragments for analysis. Sure enough, the results confirmed my worst fears. This incense was harmful to the body, capable of inducing hallucinations. and prolonged exposure would cause gradual organ failure and death. I heard it was an incense that came from the western regions. Some sorcerers once claimed that keeping this incense in the same room as a living person would allow one to summon the spirit of the deceased and let them possess the living body. Qiu Shuang, Lingxiao, and I searched the room meticulously, dusting every corner for traces of the powder. My palms went cold, but my mind raced with plans. I had to act carefully. One wrong move, and Zhu Wangqing would pin all the blame on me. Lingxiao, your uncle always said, if you strike, you must strike to kill. 16. In the days that followed, I kept a low profile. I no longer took my brother's memorial tablet out at every turn, and my discipline of Zhu Heng relaxed considerably. The Zhu mansion was eerily quiet. Only Zhu Wangqing appeared from time to time, feigning concern for my health, but his gaze always seemed to be looking past me, as if he were seeing someone else standing in my place. Once, I had only thought the Buddhist shrine where he kept Jiyu Yuelan's memorial tablet was exquisitely decorated. Now, every detail struck me as bizarre and unsettling. For instance, the golden Buddha statue inside. I had never seen one like it in any book. Other than his strange habit of talking to Jiyu Yuelan's memorial tablet, Zhu Wangqing's behavior was perfectly normal, giving me no obvious flaws to seize on. Fortunately, Lingxiao found some crucial evidence. That day, she was playing in the garden, chasing a butterfly behind the rockery, when she saw Zhu Heng crouching there furtively. A small porcelain vial in his hand, he muttered to himself softly, "Father said I have to sprinkle a little every day. I don't even know what it's for." After he left, Lingxiao ran back to fetch me, and we went to the rockery together. I searched carefully several times before I found a hidden compartment among the rocks. To an ordinary person, it might have been impossible to detect. But my Shun family had been on the battlefield for generations. We had seen every kind of trickery and subterfuge imaginable. Our ancestors had even written books documenting these tactics for future generations to study. Inside the hidden compartment lay a brocade box. Inside the box were a jade bracelet, a wooden comb, and a small rolled-up portrait. The portrait was of none other than Jiyu Yulan. The inner walls of the box were dusted with a pale yellow powder. My eyes turned cold as ice. Zhu Wangqing, what an elaborate scheme you've cooked up. I realized now that when he had decided to remarry, it had never been for himself, it had been for his deceased wife. As the daughter of a military general, my constitution was far stronger than that of other noble ladies. That was why he had chosen me. The 6th day of the 5th lunar month was Zhu Wangqing's 33rd birthday. Although it was not a milestone year, as the Minister of Rites, he still had a house full of guests. The mansion was decorated with lanterns and colored streamers. A feast was laid out in the front hall. More than half of his colleagues from the court and old friends from noble families attended. Even several princes sent congratulatory gifts. Zhu Wangqing wore an indigo brocade robe, sitting upright on the main seat with a smile on his face, but exhaustion was evident in his eyes. Of course he was exhausted. I had ordered the servants to replace the sandalwood incense in the Buddhist shrine with an incense that induced hallucinations. I had also added an extra ingredient to the incense in my own room. Now, every time Zhu Wangqing looked at me, he would zone out, lost in a daze. In his eyes, I was beginning to look more and more like his late wife. At that moment, Lingxiao came running over in a panic, her eyes red-rimmed with tears. Auntie collapsed on her way to the banquet hall. The guests exchanged glances, and whispers broke out among the crowd. Zhu Wangqing had no choice but to stand up, hurrying away from the table with Shun Lingxiao. Several female relatives who were close to the Zhu family followed them, saying they might be able to help. When the group arrived at Shun Miaoyin's courtyard, they saw Qiu Shuang supporting the unconscious me, sitting on a stone bench under the corridor. She was pinching my philtrum and feeding me water, panicking in a fluster. My face was deathly pale, my eyes tightly closed, cold sweat beading on my forehead. What happened? Zhu Wangqing stepped forward, his tone perfectly pitched with anxiety. Qiu Shuang cried, "Madam has been complaining of dizziness and fatigue these days. Today she forced herself to come out to greet the guests. But halfway there before she could finish speaking. I slowly regained consciousness, my blurred gaze swept over the crowd, finally settling on Zhu Wangqing's face. My lips moved, my voice weak and faint. Husband, did I cause you trouble again? Today is your birthday, and I'm being so useless with this body of mine. Don't say that, Zhu Wangqing soothed me with his words. But a flash of excitement and anticipation flickered in his eyes. Today is my husband's birthday. As your legal wife, it's only right that I be present, I said firmly. With the maid's support, I struggled to stand straight, looking at Zhu Wangqing. Husband, help me walk over there. I can hold on. 17. Back in the banquet hall, the atmosphere was delicate and tense. I was helped to a seat beside the main throne, my face still pale as a sheet, but I forced a smile. Apologizing to the guests for the disruption, everyone quickly said it was nothing, showering me with words of concern. The feast continued, but everyone's eyes kept drifting toward me. Intentionally or unintentionally, after several rounds of drinking, General Li, an old friend of the Shen family, suddenly spoke up. Madame Zhu's complexion, it doesn't look like it's been this way for just a day or two. Have you consulted the imperial physicians? Shen Miaoyin forced a weak smile. It's an old ailment, it's nothing to worry about. General Li frowned. From what I can see, your face has a faint grayish tinge, and your breathing is shallow. It looks exactly like symptoms of chronic poisoning. Zhu Wangqing's heart skipped a beat, but his face darkened with anger. General Li, such accusations shouldn't be made lightly. General Li's eyes were sharp as a blade. This old man has served in the military for 30 years. I've seen countless soldiers suffering from poisoning. Madame Zhu's symptoms are extremely similar to those of chronic poisoning. Lord Zhu, if your wife is unwell, you should conduct a thorough investigation at once. Zhu Wangqing's palms were sweating profusely. He was about to speak when I cut him off. Don't worry, General Li. After the banquet, I will go see a doctor. Only then did the tension on Zhu Wangqing's face ease. The banquet continued, and guests presented their gifts one after another. Finally, Zhu Heng came forward with his gift, looking elated. Father, I drew 100 longevity scroll for you. It's in this box. Zhu Wangqing sighed emotionally. Heng has really grown up. I watched the father and son with a smile on my face, seemingly touched by their filial bond. The next moment, Zhu Wangqing opened the box in front of everyone. Inside, laid out for all to see, were the bizarre statue of the deity, an incense burner, Jiu Yuelan's old belongings, and several boxes of the unused soul-summoning incense. General Li's expression changed instantly. He slammed his palm on the table, standing up abruptly. This thing is called soul-summoning incense. Imported from the western regions, prolonged exposure induces hallucinations, damages the body, and eventually causes organ failure and death. Back in the day, we lost countless soldiers because of this incense. How did it end up here? Before Zhu Wangqing could even begin to defend himself, Zhu Heng let out a cry of surprise. This is what father told me to hide behind the rockery. How did it get here? Zhu Wangqing's face turned as white as a sheet. Ling Xiao blinked her big eyes, looking utterly confused and innocent. Auntie, I've seen this powder in your room too. Last time Zhu Heng was sprinkling it there secretly. I asked him what it was, and he said it was for strengthening the body. At that moment, the wine cup in my hand slipped from my grasp, shattering on the floor with a crisp crash. I looked at Zhu Wangqing in disbelief, tears welling up in my eyes. Husband, so that's why I've been feeling weaker and weaker these days. You actually instigated Heng to poison me. 18. The veins on Zhu Wangqing's forehead bulged, his whole body trembling with rage and fear. Ridiculous, how could I ever believe in such? But General Li had already picked up the portrait from the box, letting out a cold snort. This is Lord Zhu's private seal. Paired with the seal of a sorcerer from the western regions, this old man would never mistake them. Furthermore, the date of birth and time is engraved on the back of this bizarre statue. Miss Miaoyin, come take a look. I closed my eyes for a moment, my voice choked with sobs. This is my date of birth. Husband, what exactly do you intend to do? Everyone turned to stare at Zhu Wangqing, their eyes filled with shock and accusation. He mumbled incoherently, no, I only wanted to bring Yulan back. Tears streamed down my face as I glared at him, my voice filled with hatred. Bring her back, so you have to kill me first. I never wanted to marry you. But I have never treated you badly. I respected you, honored you, raised your son as my own, managed the household affairs diligently, and this is how you repay me, with my life." I sank to my knees, kowtowing to the guests present. "My father is not in the capital, my elder brother died fighting on the battlefield, and only my mother remains at home. Her health is poor, and she rarely leaves the house. I beg you all to be my witnesses. I, Shen Miaoyin, beg His Majesty the Emperor to uphold justice for the Shen family." A pair of large, strong hands lifted me up. General Li's voice was loud and firm, ringing out clearly. "The Shen family has been loyal and righteous for generations. I don't know if others will stand up for you, but I, Li Yu, am here today. And I swear I will go before His Majesty to demand justice for you." As soon as he finished speaking, many of the guests present voiced their support, saying they would also testify on my behalf. Then Ling Xiao suddenly ran into the hall again, with a guard dragging a man behind her. Under the hood, a face with distinct Western region features was visible, and his accent was strange and foreign. "Auntie, I was just on my way to find a doctor when I saw this man lurking around suspiciously, so I had the guards arrest him. Of course, this was all a lie. A few days earlier, my hidden guards had already captured this sorcerer from the western regions and used some persuasion tactics to make him talk." At the sight of the scene unfolding before him, his legs went weak, and he knelt down with a thud, kowtowing frantically. "It's not my fault, it was Lord Zhu. He begged me to perform the ritual to summon the spirit of his deceased wife." Zhu Wangqing had no way left to argue or defend himself. He opened his mouth, but a mouthful of blood spewed out, staining his indigo robe crimson. 19. Word of the incident at the banquet reached the emperor's ears that very day. The emperor had personally arranged this marriage because he valued Zhu Wangqing highly. This scandal was a slap in the face to the emperor himself, and his anger knew no bounds. The emperor stripped Zhu Wangqing of all his official titles and positions, demoting him to a commoner. The eunuch delivering the imperial edict had a cold, unforgiving voice. Zhu Wangqing knelt in the courtyard of his mansion, dressed in plain white mourning clothes. Overnight, his hair had turned grey with grief and despair. "I will never see Yulan again." The old madam wailed and cried hysterically. Upon hearing his words, she could no longer contain her rage, beating him violently. "I'll beat you to death, you fool. Wasn't it you who suspected her of having an affair with another man, causing Jiyu Yulan to suffer a miscarriage and give birth prematurely? Now you've been blinded by your obsession, throwing away a good life for such nonsense. Have you gone completely mad?" Zhu Heng hid behind the crowd, his small hands clutching his sleeves tightly, seemingly unable to comprehend what was happening in front of him. As for me, I packed my dowry, took Ling Xiao with me, and boarded the Shen family's carriage, leaving the Zhu mansion behind for good. 3 days later, all the servants of the Zhu family had scattered. The mansion was sealed with official government seals. 3 years later, at Luoyang Pass, Ling Xiao came bouncing over to me, full of energy. The little girl had grown taller and slimmer. Dressed in a red military tunic, she had her mother's bright, vivid beauty, and her father's heroic spirit. "Auntie, Mother said there's a letter from the capital today." My hand, wiping the sweat from my brow, paused for a moment. Oh, it was a letter from my mother. She wrote that after being stripped of his official position, Zhu Wangqing had fallen into a state of utter despair, drowning his sorrows in alcohol every day, with no one to discipline him. Zhu Heng had fallen in with a gang of local hooligans by the age of 13. Recently, he had been imprisoned for theft. Zhu Wangqing had sold the last of his family's property to bribe the officials and get him released. Now, father and son were cramped together in a slum in the southern part of the city, barely scraping by copying books and writing letters for others. Then, a few days ago, Zhu Heng had gotten into a fight with some thugs. That night, both father and son had accidentally fallen into the river and drowned. I put the letter down, my expression calm and indifferent. My sister-in-law emerged from the military tent. At the sight of her, Ling Xiao immediately looked like a mouse caught by a cat. She tugged at my hand pitifully. "Auntie," I sighed helplessly, "tomorrow, you're going to patrol the border with the scouts. Your mother has already agreed." The little girl's eyes lit up with excitement. When I grow up, I want to be a general too, just like mother and auntie. I stroked her head gently. Good. Remember this, we are daughters of the Shen family. We can serve our country, we can shed our blood on the battlefield, but we will never, ever waste our lives trapped in a mansion for the sake of someone who doesn't deserve us.